I welcome you all to the 20th edition of B.N.Ganguli Memorial Lecture. The B.N.Ganguli Memorial Lecture are instituted in the memory of the first chairman of the governing board of CSDS, Professor B.N.Ganguli. He was the chairman of the governing board for a very long time, started in 1967 and was the chairman of the governing board till 1978. He also served as the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University between 1967 and 69. He was also an eminent economist. Every year CSDS organizes a lecture in the memory of Professor B.N.Ganguli. This is the 20th year of this lecture, and you could imagine that we have a very long list of distinguished speakers who has delivered this lecture in the past. But just to name a few, we had lectures by Charles Taylor, Bhikhu, Parekh, Chakrabarti, Partha. You can imagine if this is the 20th year, we have a very long list. I don't wish to take names of all the speakers to take so much of time, because I know many of us are eager to hear Professor Leela Gandhi, who is the speaker for today. Today she is going to speak. Leela Gandhi would be introduced by my colleague Prathama Banerjee, who is chairing today's lecture. But just to introduce in a line, Professor Leela Gandhi is a John Fox Professor of Humanities and English at Brown University. Today she is going to speak on if there was a manifesto for post-colonial thinking. So this is in brief about B.N.Ganguli Memorial Lecture. And I request Prathama to just introduce the speaker and take the proceedings forward. Thank you.
Good evening everybody and a very warm welcome. But first, may I make a rather unpopular request to a very young crowd, if you could put your phones on silent or switch it off. So, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Professor Leela Gandhi, today's speaker, political philosopher, cultural and literary theorist, and writer par excellence. I add writer par excellence because I have always read Professor Gandhi as both a thinker and a writer of beautiful and patient prose. I remember being greatly taken with her earlier formulation that colonialism produces a relationship of contrapunctality between the West and the non-West, a musical metaphor. Two distinct melodic lines playing simultaneously, not in harmony, but in counterpoise and even discord at times, producing a musical effect that is neither West nor the non-West, nor indeed imaginable in terms that we are used to of comparison and contrast. Equally thought-provoking is a recent formulation about post-colonial democracy in terms of an ethics of imperfection, as opposed to an aesthetics of heroism. Leela Gandhi, as you know, is the author of many books and essays, most well known being her 2006 book, Affective Communities, Anti-Colonial Thought, Philosophical Radicalism and the Politics of Friendship, and her 2014 book, The Common Cause, Post-Colonial Ethics and the Practice of Democracy, which talks about the instituting moment of contemporary democracy between 1900 and 1955. Her earlier box office hit, Postcolonial Theory, Critical Introduction, is soon to be out in a new edition next year. Professor Gandhi is the founding co-editor of the academic journal Postcolonial Studies, which all of you read regularly, I'm sure, and one of the editors of the electronic journal Postcolonial Text. As Sanjayji mentioned, she currently is John Fox Professor of Humanities and English at Brown University, where she also directs currently the Center for Contemporary South Asia. She is also a senior fellow at the School for Criticism and Theory at Cornell University. Professor Leela Gandhi.
Thank you so much. So incredibly kind. And certainly thank you everyone at CSDS for also to be back here, extremely moving to be with old teachers and friends, and therefore also somewhat terrifying. Trying very hard not to be sick. Thank you for having me. This starts slowly. Bear with me. Since the publication of Edward Said's Orientalism, postcolonialism has had major impact across disciplines. It's been a prompt for transnational knowledges. It's also put imperialism at the heart of modern power as a technology of harmfulness that calls forth corresponding objections. This theme, I'll argue today, establishes postcolonial thinking as a contemporary philosophy of renunciation, with a unique proposal for uninjured life and non-injurious community. I'll make my case in 7 subsections: assemblage, injury, exit, ontology, renunciation, ethics, and advice to kings. Each ends with a proposal. These sections very short. Assemblage. Postcolonial thought is made up of heterogeneous elements with no internal hierarchies of genre, as in representation, event, semiotic, material, or even theory practice to cover all sense. What we have instead is relations between symmetrical figures in the forum. Shifts of mood and population generate new meanings, e.g. when disciplinary antagonisms end, new archival affinities emerge, and historic and conceptual figures appear and disappear in the field. Now, there are many names for this type of formation. We have apparatus, network, ensemble, assemblage, and most recently, affordance. Caroline Levin's book on this. But I also like the word jugaad in this series, which can of course refer, in the order of things, to a makeshift vehicle or a style of frugal engineering that uses all the limited resources at hand. Now, these may not belong together and will likely disaggregate once the job is done. But their surprising combination is effective. It makes something work. And innovative. It builds something new. So let me run through, starting slowly, 3 elements of post-colonial jugaad, or assemblage, that I'll have at the back of my mind as we move forward. Western self-critique, anti-colonial liberation, and planetarity. Now, we often hear that post-colonialism is a reversed ethnocentrism that decentralizes Europe, and it's typically accused of preaching against Western modernity from a position of radical cultural relativism. Yet, post-colonial objections to European colonialism can be internal to Europe, and the history of Western anti-imperialism is at least as old as Western imperialism. And one of the places where I find it's easiest to track is within pre- and non-Marxist socialist democratic traditions. Chartism, utopian socialism, guild socialism, and indeed the New Left movements of our own time, to name but a few, are all Republican by descent, in the strict sense of the term Republican. And their objection to tyranny typically extends to imperialism or externally directed absolutism, in which they refuse to be caught up as beneficiaries. It's something that Ashish Nandi once called being a non-player. Now, postcolonialism also draws on anti-colonial liberation movements. Many formalized, this is well known as the Asian and African nationalisms of the mid-20th century. Now, the network for this category is intricate. Though these revolutionary nationalisms claim radical moral difference from Europe, the West, they are not intrinsically sectarian. Intrinsically. Indeed, many gave rise to pioneering visions of world consortium, comparable to the most expansive ideals of European Union. But when anti-colonial nationalisms become nation states, they too turn against the government. This has been the fate of far too many decolonization movements, and at such times, anti-colonial liberation is reoriented as a struggle against domestic imperialism. Partakers reopen the Republican revolutionary project for civic virtues against unlimited rule, and claim cognates in movements on behalf of minorities and vulnerable populations the world over. So for this reason, the global history of civil rights is germane to postcolonial thought. And this involves struggles that do not terminate in nationalism, but which are not anti-nationalistic as such. Final category of postcolonial assemblage, and I can hint at this here, is about aspirations for non-partisan futures and trusteeship of shared resources. It's well described by the term planetarity, and it's on show in appeals for human rights and on behalf of non-human life and environmental futures. Composite form points to human life that is marked less than human because of gender or race or poverty and such. And this figure of the not quite human, so the argument goes, is as vulnerable to anthropocentrism as other non-human entities, and is tasked with a new kind of planetary humanism based on interspecies accord. Complex interactions across the postcolonial assemblage give us an intersectional account of imperialism as a scene of overlapping cruelties. Anti-imperialism also takes on associated unity principles, so that conscientious objection is the end of Jim Crowism, is workers' rights, is gender equity, is ecological ethics, and so on. Okay. Proposal number 1. Post-colonial thinking is an assemblage or jugaad that favors intersectional descriptions of imperialism and anti-imperialism. Okay, now that that's done. Though imperialism is not restricted to any one venue or even history or taxonomy, there are precise moments when it has erupted with unusual force, most notably in the shadows of European modernity. Modern imperialism, which commands postcolonial thought, is often described as a state of domination in which the customary reversibilities of democratic political life are stored. This is not an aberration, something unprecedented in politics, as Hannah Arendt once said of totalitarianism. nor is it an aspect of juridical suspension which allows for emergency of disciplinary procedures in a functioning polity. Empire relies instead on a temporal inconsistency, a double time, Bhikhu calls this, which imputes a lag in the political development of some entities and therefore also authorizes an archaic counterculture, a provision for stasis deep within the makeup of modern governments. An unevenly egalitarian government, in other words, is licensed to be unevenly modern in style. Now, this selective immobilization of politics that permits the same agent to trade at the same time in freedom and tyranny, or democracy and despotism, entails an order of acute historical and moral misrecognition, often explained with reference to the parable of subordination in Hegel's phenomenology. When the negotiation of intersubjectivity between master and slave breaks down and turns into a death struggle, the slave is ultimately kept alive, but actually notes memorably, in a state of injury. Now, this describes a core premise of actual institutional slavery in its many forms, mentioned earlier, but also of colonial rule. Now, I don't have the time to pass this conceit in the context of the very many recent crossing theories of modern power, e.g. concerning biopower, Bhikhu, or states of exception, Agamben, or necropolitics, Mandate, or disposability, Giroux, or subjection, Hartman and Patterson. Its purpose for my discussion is this. Once again, forgive me for moving quickly over some decommitting steps. At scenes of colonial encounter, there are always discourses of transformation in which states of injury, indeed suffering itself, becomes the basis for exchange and solidarity between disparate agents. This can take multiple forms. There's a transformation of knowledge, for instance, with greater attentiveness to suffering as a philosophical topic. This is significant. Recall Pierre Bourdieu's complaint in The Weight of the World that social democracy and the academic outlook that comes with it is not just blind but actively hostile to the small privations and muted violence of everyday life. I'm pointing to a reversal of this bias, after which it becomes the very business of thought to dwell on ordinary suffering. Studies in black existentialism give one example, and say point to blues and jazz as works in existentialism that engage the problem of suffering from a vitalistic perspective. Mid-20th century dialogue between Frantz Fanon and Sartre adds a layer to this history. Now, many of you may know, in his 1948 preface to Senghor's collection of African and West Indian poetry, Sartre argues that the literature of negritude gives us a rare outlook on suffering as the crucial phenomenon of consciousness. Sartre's own evolving take on existentialism as a non-pessimistic concern with anguish names suffering as the starting point of secular life. Back and forth with Frantz Fanon's followers in the years prior to Fanon's description, famously, of colonial struggle as the purview of the wretched of the earth, in his 1961 book by Raimundo. In all these instances, and more besides, we can also see something else. The gradual recalibration of anti-imperial objection as a stated refusal to be harmed, to coup. No more murderers masked as statesmen, no more lynch ropes, science for human uplift and not for death, Shirley Graham says in her keynote speech at the 1948 Progressive Party founding convention in Philadelphia. There is no need to beat me, Bayard Rustin says to his assailants when he is dragged off a bus in 1942 at the start of a planned journey from Louisville to Nashville. Now, such a refusal to be harmed, I'm saying, can paradoxically take the form of violence. The Marxist interface with decolonization sustains the view, well endorsed by Fanon, that only violence will restore motility within states of domination. Hannah Arendt certainly believed that violent outbursts were the only recourse of slave rebellions and uprisings amongst downtrodden populations on account of a lack of access to other more legitimate forms of protest. But the surprise, and I really can't foreground this enough, is the extent to which practices of imperial harmfulness have historically called forth diverse commitments to unconditional nonviolence. And to be honest, Gandhi's uptake of the ancient concept of ahimsa, literally non-injuriousness, is just one example that traverses many circuits of the post-colonial assemblage through the very long 20th century. Just one example. So proposal number 2. Post-colonial thinking offers a reckoning with injured life and communities of suffering, and a template for non-injuriousness as a way of life and a basis for community. Exit. Figures and elements from across the post-colonial jugaad engage with projects of uninjurability and non-injuriousness in various ways. In the main, they ricochet between the perks of inclusivity on the one hand and exit on the other. Inclusivity, exit. These topics seem congenial, but they are in fact utterly antagonistic. Let me explain. Inclusivity ideals haunt well-known post-colonial concepts such as hybridity and interstitiality, which describe the unfeasibility of radical exclusion even in the most hostile imperial encounters. They tell us how, adversarial worlds morph into each other and incorporate division. Now, add to this post-colonialism's disciplinary hospitality to historically sidelined objects, modes of analysis, forms of life on grounds that everything is knowledge, everything is politics, so on. Civil rights movements repair frozen aspects of political life by creating new openings, new forms of mobility within law and within the public sphere. Anti-colonial nationalism struggle for inclusion in the world community of sovereign states. All of this, the inexpiability of exclusion or the style of treating disparate entities on equal footing, gains a lot from ontological thought. and describe exactly what I mean by ontology in the very next section, so we can forget all about it. Now, exit, this other category I'm talking about, is a more elusive thing in postcolonial. Shows up as an optimistic strain that declares the totalization of power to be a structural impossibility. This means that no regime, no matter how hard it tries, can fully control every aspect of life or time. Something always gets away by a law of survival, so we hear from many thinkers. Exit ideals also apply to agential projects that actively refuse saturation, either by a norm or hegemony or a coercion or heteronomy. Now, such examples include civil disobedience, non-cooperation, non-alignment, which break with the ruling order of the time, marronage, the form of slave escape within Caribbean and American slave systems, is also representative as a unique practice of freedom. Even pacifism counts, insofar as peace involves removing oneself from the temptation of negative critique to a third, or why not fourth or fifth position, to get as far away as possible from the terms of antagonism. Pacifists have long defended desertion as an apt response to war. Refugees as well, Sandro Mezzandra writes, exercise a similar right to escape. In all these cases, there's a belief that every social contract incorporates the option of running away, so as to forge a better social contract. Now, as it happens, fugitivity, that's sort of what I'm talking about in a sense, has never had very good press in mainstream political theory. In the German ideology, for example, Marx and Engels criticized it as pre-revolutionary, as something pre-industrial, actually even pre-political. The action of serfs and slaves whose only shot at freedom was running away from bondage individually in search of voluntary associations. But you know, there are very many other disciplinary names for the work of exit. Ethics is one such. Ethics is one such. And the cue I'm looking for comes from the combined resources of Kant's great essay of 1784, What is Enlightenment? And Michel Foucault's meditation on this work in his own 1984 essay, What is Enlightenment? A paraphrase serves us well. It goes something like this. True enlightenment involves mankind's exit, Ausgang, from submission to somebody else's authority. And ethics is the spiritual transformation we undergo in this process. So, proposal number 3, postcolonial thinking can present as an ethics of departure. Ontology. Apologies. In the context of increased planetary thinking, the environmental turn, a new resurgence of ontology in the global academy, actually, an ontological term, as it is known, has taken up the cause of inclusivity ideas. It's all we hear about, inclusive, be inclusive, when in doubt, be inclusive. And what's not to love about inclusivity? All variants of this term across the disciplines, critical realist, those of you who are anthropologists will know these well, symmetricalist, archaeologists as well, object-oriented, new materialist, to name a few, are joined in the desire to save things, in this instance, or thing-like entities, from minds or mind-like entities. Okay? Or better, to remove the barriers between things and minds so we can all be objects of vibrant matter together, secure from any threatening position of externality outside of the house of being. Such planetary ontologies that tend toward philosophically debased substances, non-human life, insentient objects, e.g., are presented as congenial to postcolonial thinking. And of course they are. But the emergence of this subfield of political ontology has actually a leading disciplinary outlook. It is actually extremely unfavorable to post-colonial concerns, not just thinking. Now, this field actually includes diverse contemporary thinkers, and at the source, of course, Hannah Arendt and Carl Schmitt. See, so it's in the air. This is kind of proof that good. And it can be described as a left Heideggerianism that encourages a shift from politics, lowercase, science of particular entities, discrete phenomena, isolated issues, mundane social existence, to the perspective of the political. Here, a preference for aggregative and objective aspects of political life, structure, agency, process, organization, potentially relegates anything outside of the ensemble, the fuzzy ensemble of being, to incoherence. There's also a marked suspicion, here's where it gets sticky, a marked suspicion of political claims that involve subjective criteria, such as my pain, the pain of my race, or of my people. Representative thinkers use the concept of democracy, the epitome of corporate political life after all, more or less interchangeably with the concept of political. In fact, political ontology styles itself as a radical democratic theory. And it is in the name of the so-called fundamentals of democracy that political ontologists raise their main objections to postcolonial thought. Let me present these schematically, perhaps too schematically, forgive me. So political ontology trades on a notional standoff between a good and a bad ontology. Bad ontology, confusingly referred to as empire by some thinkers, is a system of totality that prohibits externality and feeds on difference. Prohibits externality and feeds on difference. Giorgio Agamben's pessimistic account of biopolitics gives us a lead. What does Agamben say? There's no escaping the state in the framework of our mortality, he suggests. Once biological life becomes the crux of its power. Consider an added complication. The modern state is most sovereign, actually, when it exerts a right of exception and suspends its own laws, say in the name of domestic security. We are thus expressly trapped in a regime and most vulnerable to its arbitrary power precisely when it abandons us and withdraws its promised jurisdiction over the maintenance of life. There's no way out. Other examples. The early Foucault, for example, lends himself to the view that there's no outsideness to modern power. What constitutes modern power is the fact that there's no outsideness to it. Because such power is relational, nowhere more so than in the presence of engaging subjects. I want to come back to this in a moment, this idea of engaging subjects. Engagement may take the form of consent or resistance, remember. Subjection relies on and extends its reach through emerging subjects, whatever their disposition to power. If you're a subject, you're subjected. The risks of bad ontology can be offset, though. It's good news. Through the prophylaxis of good ontology. What is good ontology? Good ontology conceals the signs that are a goad to bad ontology, such as difference, identity, subjectivity, separateness. And it does so how? Through an invitation to absolute insidedness, which dissolves emergent forms of difference. Recursive subject formations, by giving everyone, a chance to inhabit the political multitude as a shareholder and forget themselves in the democratic struggle for universal goods and rights. Universalization of goods and rights. Small disclaimer applies though. Participation in ontological democracy is not for the faint-hearted or those who are shy. It requires, following Nietzsche's pivotal thinker for political ontology, a robust, manly will to power, or capacity to lead and to fund. In plain terms, this means giving up on the view that there are culprits out there who are responsible for our hurt, or external forces such as the law or the state to redress our suffering. Only we can make ourselves whole. Only we can make ourselves whole. So the postcolonial assemblage is allegedly at odds with this enterprise because it's made up of historically marginalized groups who are unwilling and unable to shed their attachment to parochial interests and therefore to reified forms of identity. Black, female, queer, Muslim, etc. More so, such identities are yoked to memories of injury that can only be expressed against the political, so the argument goes, as a demand for increased entitlements and protections, in complaints about powerlessness and vulnerability, or in an attitude, here is Nietzsche again, of raison d'être. In brief, postcolonial thought threatens democracy, or so the argument goes, because it favors victim outsiders more than investor participants. And with this stance, the political sociologist Louis Bhikhu argues, a wonderful book, contemporary radical democratic philosophy revives the ban on social suffering as a fit topic for theory. Now to negotiate these complex, complicated embargoes and move on with my leading claims, let me propose that the postcolonial assemblage gives us a cogent theory of suffering. That's what I'm after, a cogent theory of suffering. Precisely by maximizing the resources of egress. What do I mean by that? Going out of or leaving a place. So doing, what it does is illumine a unique type of exit relation that's grounded in ethical anarchism. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. Unique type of exit relation that is grounded in ethical anarchism. Now, any thinking of or by exit involves the ballast of some provisional residual type of subjectivity, the condition most despised by ontologists. When I run away, I become myself, or I become, I can only run away as myself. What I want to say is that the subject that emerges after exit, however, is acutely susceptible to combination. Heidegger actually serves us well when he complains that even after a robust ontology has cured us of subjectivity, the ego still quickens to the tug of other selves and alter egos, in and as the desire for worship, the desire for love, for permutation and variation. In other words, there's no default of separatist subject identity for those who quit ontological settings. In fact, it's only as particular subjects that we can enter into relationships with others, indeed recognize that there are others. Therefore, proposal number 4. Postcolonial thinking makes of displacement a means to devise non-generic connections with the world. Getting there. Renunciation. Okay, some recap. Political ontology, I've been saying, calls on Nietzsche to build its polemic of will to power, or the capacity to enter and participate in the political, on the one hand, and victimhood, or the stance of standing outside the political as a plaintiff. Now, Nietzsche's cavils belong to his sweeping critique of asceticism, and for which the term ethics has become a shorthand in contemporary critical terminology. Nietzsche is harsh on ascetic ideas. They are the recourse of the underprivileged and of a slave morality, he opines somewhat dangerously. They are a devious form of power that give heft to suffering and turn the powerful into hangmen. So what's interesting then for the story I'm trying to tell here is the way that Nietzsche, who's generally very hostile to European asceticisms, finds a fair bit to praise in the history of Eastern asceticism, so-called, and chiefly its Buddhist elaboration. The attention to Buddhism is not surprising. It's one of the earliest formal philosophies of renunciation, which BTW is an inferred form of exit. Renunciation is an inferred form of exit. And it had a staggering global influence in its own time. And Buddhism's fascination for 19th century European Orientalist scholars has also been noted. Nietzsche was introduced to Buddhism through the work of his own close friend Paul Deussen, a professor of comparative philosophy and philology at the University of Keane. Now, it is in his genealogy of morals that Nietzsche directly credits Buddhism with anticipating paramount themes in Western thought by several centuries. And in a much quoted passage in this work, Nietzsche describes the Buddha's flight from domesticity in search of salvation as a crux of philosophical life itself. Every wish for the wilderness brings freedom from noise and wounded ambition, he writes, not to mention uninterrupted hours of work between 10 and 12. Every wish for the desert is a call for protection from bad weather, mainly one's own, and a form of self-mothering, In this way, Nietzsche intuitively grasps the significance of exit as a secret movement of well-being within the renunciatory philosophies that reached an apex at the time of the Buddha. Now, this key discovery of renunciation as an expansive care of the self recurs throughout the postcolonial assemblage, especially during the first half of the 20th century. In particular, there's tremendous interest in many quarters in Buddhist Brahmarajya, Parekh, or voluntary homelessness, as a resource for anyone looking to protest states of domination in a social and spiritual register and to escape injury. Hermann Hesse's 1922 work, Siddharth, for example, well known to many of you, I'm sure, is a meditation on the uses of Buddhist renunciation as a remedy for violence in the context of church militarism. The book became a manifesto for the international pacifist movement from the interwar years right up to the protests against the Vietnam War. There's another powerful uptake of Rajpur in 1956. It is in this year that B.R. Ambedkar converted to Buddhism with some 400,000 followers, little short of 400,000 followers. Now, Ambedkar was not by any means the first Dalit leader to draw on these resources and grasp their pertinence for outcast communities. Who shared the experience of abandonment and exploitation. In writings and speeches associated with the mass conversion of 1956, he argued that there was no safe haven, this is the important word, no safe haven for Dalit women and men within caste communities. Now, it's well known that to instruct new Buddhists about their faith, Ambedkar spent the last few weeks of his life compiling a Buddhist Bible, as he called it. And in this work, the Buddha and his Dhamma, he returns to some of the earliest sources of this tradition, including the 3 baskets of the Pali canon for the opposite account. Now, there's been some inspired recent scholarly work on Ambedkar and early Buddhism, including his adaptation of the Paribraja tradition. And I'm very indebted and inspired by this work and its thinkers for important cues. What I want to focus on now is this. Everywhere in Ambedkar's sources, and to some extent in his retelling as well, exit ideals are a hinge in the 2-part constellation. There is suffering in the world. That suffering has an end. The Buddha's inaugural flight is the prototype that renders every subsequent ordination literally into a vow to wander forward. An initiation into Buddhism is in this way an initiation into leaving. The mind of a new monk, we learned from the Mahayana teacher Asanga, is all outsiderness. Henceforth, she treads the city as a prison and dreams of open spaces in which to sleep like a deer with limbs outstretched. But in another odd twist, this whole commitment to departure is also one and the same thing as seeking refuge. No ordination is complete without the consensus that the exiting novice is refuge worthy, namely someone who merits asylum, because she perceives that she is in danger and distress. Why else would you need that? Because she perceives she is in danger and distress, and because she no longer wishes to be endangered. Such a person then qualifies for the task of offering refuge to less fortunate runaways who have been forced to flee, who are in need of shelter, and whose displacement is involuntary. She becomes a universal person with an altruistic outlook, neither chief nor alone, who is alert to hidden interdependencies between herself and pretty much everything else. Now, in Ambedkar's version of this process, a process involving ordination and conversion, there's a strong obligation, or the ethical obligation, to remove oneself from a harmful situation. The Dalit monk can only enter a life of service, which she must, once she has removed herself from the scene of caste injury. By stepping outside the fold twice as convert and as sort of renunciate. The sort of renunciate I'm talking about here on this refuge. She is finally equipped to abandon abandonment and exit exclusion, and to inaugurate an end to suffering. So proposal number 5, receiving and providing refuge is a corollary of renunciation in postcolonial thinking. I'm nearly done. Ethics. The motifs of breaking, exiting, getting outside also enter networks of Western self-critique in the post-colonial assemblage through the recent ethical turn in critical theory, which takes its cue, of course, as is well known, from Emmanuel Levinas's ethics of infinite openness to the other, any other, who shows up unannounced and unexpected. Now, in the main, for Levinas, and we know this from his earliest writings, in his 1935 essay De la Vision, it is ontology of any denomination we must escape from, since all systems of indivisibility, family, tribe, so on, mask component relationships, mask component relationships, but to recognize that this escape is also a break from the resources on which we know ourselves to be ourselves is the tricky thing, the trickier thing, in fact. It involves why? Because it involves voluntarily quitting our origin, our source, our stock. Now, such a process is constitutively anarchic, to use Levinas's surprising term. It enlists a raw humanity that's anterior to and in this way free from any pact or contract. Once free, once outside, however, we are thrown into codependent life, and nowhere more so than through the interhuman dimension of suffering. This is the key, recurring, creative paradox at the heart of the exit ideals that I've been tracking thus far. So many of Levinas's ethical themes are anticipated and globalized in the work of 19th century anarchist ecologists such as Peter Kropotkin, Élisée Reclus, and Edward Carpenter, all responding to and participating in the cross currents of empire. These thinkers constantly play with the theme of fugitivity. Kropotkin tells us that the anarchist wish not to rule is always greater than the wish not to be ruled. But modern political society doesn't honor this wish. The doctrine of social contract may well have vanquished absolutism in Europe, but in its place, as the origin of democracy, it redistributes the desire to rule within every individual citizen. Thus, we need a morality that teaches us how to dispose ourselves toward ourselves anarchistically. Kropotkin works on this project throughout his life. The aim is to clarify the principles for fleeing our own dominion and learning to disobey ourselves. This is the only outsideness that really matters in the end. And Levinas would agree. It helps us shed many psychic provincialisms, what we know and have, where we come from, what we fear, for a creed of kinship. And what is this? An atavism of mutual aid that crops up spontaneously amongst social exiles, or so many anarchists maintain. Then, says Kropotkin, we can finally see the superabundance of life, the simple way in which all things are for all men, because all men have need of them. Proposal number 6, anarchism is the hidden component of postcolonial thinking. Finally. Advice to kings. In an episode, famous episode from the Buddha's childhood, lovingly retold by Hesse and Rinke, an oracle, actually many oracles, observed that the young prince is endowed with a set of attributes that will either turn him into a Chakravartin, conqueror of the world, whose dominion is not limited by boundaries and borders, or into someone who has conquered the self, a Jina, to borrow a term from Jainism that also summons the parallel career of Prathama and Mahavira. Point of this prophecy for my argument is its generalizability as an argument about the intermutability of world conquest and self-conquest as linked potentialities. It tells us that conquerors can make a qualitative leap and turn into Jinas. There's always an end to states of domination. In this way, the Buddha origin story hints at the possibility of an alternative to power for the powerful as much as for the powerless. And it often falls upon cultures of renunciation to speak this truth to power by teaching the powerful about the limits of their force and the error of their ways. I mean, Buddha's eventual exit from potency was inspired, teaching, by the vast counterculture of elective militancy in his own way. This theme describes a hidden propensity in anti-colonial liberation movements. These can take on a pedagogy for oppressors, or a program, we could say, of advice to kings from the downtrodden. There are countless examples in the literature of modern decolonization. Fanon, Césaire, Lemmy, Du Bois, Gandhi, and later, instructing anyone who cares to listen that colonialism brutalizes the colonizer, and that all parties should be victorious in a conflict, that love is better than war, or that the sovereigns of the earth are inferior to the beggars and cities, and so on. Such aim to civilize the conqueror is, however, yoked to the prospect of a far worse reversal in the linked potentialities of world conqueror and self-conqueror. And what is this? The courage to speak the truth presupposes an illusion of incorruptibility and moral hubris. We can only admonish power with conviction if we believe we are above it, and if we are convinced of our own unique monopoly on truth. And this attitude is as perilous as it is necessary. There's always a risk that a Jina who starts to make a law of suffering and who forgets that the wilderness is a movement rather than a territory may turn into a Chakravartin or despot. Therefore, and finally, proposal number 7. Post-colonial thinking is best as an imperfective outlook that remains indefinite, unfinished, and peripatetic. Thank you so much for listening.